The little one in my belly gave a gentle kick, as if knowing I was staring at that huge electronic screen. I stood in the VIP waiting area on the 3rd floor of the city maternity hospital, clutching the 5th-month prenatal checkup form in my hand. The air conditioning was a bit too cold, and I instinctively covered my slightly rounded abdomen. The appointment was scheduled for 3 p.m., and Ji Hanchuan's assistant had confidently assured me yesterday that the CEO would make time to come. Of course, in the past 5 months, such promises had been fulfilled exactly 0 times. When there are still 2 people ahead of you, you can sit and rest for now. The nurse at the station gave me a gentle smile, and I nodded. I had just settled into the soft chair by the floor-to-ceiling window when a commotion erupted in the waiting hall. Look, isn't that someone from the G group? Oh my god, it really is Ji Hanchuan. He's getting married, and the bride is Song Wanqing. The voices, like a rising tide, washed over me. I looked up and saw the giant electronic screen facing the entire waiting area, usually cycling through pregnancy education videos and hospital promotional clips, now switched to a live broadcast of entertainment news. The shaky camera focused on a pristine white church standing on a private island, the sunlight so glaring it cast a halo over the screen. A red carpet stretched from the dock all the way to the church entrance. Flanked by attendants in uniform, an aerial shot swept over the sea, where at least 30 yachts were anchored in the azure waters, several of them clearly carrying camera-toting journalists on their decks. And then he appeared. Ji Hanchuan was dressed in a custom-made black tuxedo, his figure as straight and sharp as an unsheathed sword. He stood under the archway in front of the church, his profile turned toward the camera, his jawline taut. The wind tousled the dark hair on his forehead slightly, but he made no move to fix it. Instead, he raised his wrist to glance at his watch, a gesture I knew all too well. Impatient, yet forced to endure. CEO G looks absolutely stunning today, a young pregnant woman next to me murmured while holding her phone. Her friend leaned in and whispered that this wedding had cost 9 figures. Song Wanqing's wedding dress was a French haute couture piece, and the veil alone was 20 meters long. And that's not all. Look at the flowers in the church, all Ecuadorian roses airlifted this morning. My fingertips dug into my palms as the scene cut to the interior of the church. The sound of the organ music, distorted through the screen's cheap speakers, was still recognizable as the wedding march. The pews were filled with guests, and I recognized several faces often seen in financial magazines. Elder Madame G sat in the front row, wearing a deep purple cheongsam, her hair impeccably styled. She smiled, a smile I had seen too many times in the G family, dignified and proper, but with no warmth in her eyes. Then, the bride appeared. Song Wanqing, holding her father's arm, slowly walked down the red carpet. The wedding dress was indeed stunning. Layers of lace and tiny diamonds glittering dazzlingly in the sunlight. The veil covered most of her face, but the corners of her lips, painted with a nude pink lipstick, were curved upward in a perfectly measured smile. She walked to Ji Hanchuan's side, and the priest began reciting the vows. At the bottom of the screen, scrolling news headlines cut like knives. Live broadcast, G Group President Ji Hanchuan and actress Song Wanqing's island wedding, a wedding of the century, the union of a business tycoon and a screen queen. Insider reveals, Song Wanqing is 2 months pregnant, double happiness. Suddenly, a tightening sensation gripped my abdomen, not a fetal movement, but a mild contraction. Enough to make me bend over and brace myself against the nearby coffee table. When are you feeling unwell? The nurse hurried over. I shook my head, my breathing slightly labored. It's nothing, just a bit stuffy. But my eyes remained fixed on the screen. The priest's voice came through the speakers. Mr. Ji Hanchuan, do you take Song Wanqing to be your wife, to love and cherish her, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, till death do you part? The entire waiting hall fell silent, everyone holding their breath, waiting to hear that answer. The camera gave Ji Hanchuan a close-up, the muscles in his side profile twitched slightly, and then he spoke. His voice, transmitted through the microphone, was low and clear. I do, Song Wanqing. Do you? Song Wanqing's voice was as sweet as honey, and she didn't even wait for the priest to finish. Cheers erupted from the screen, and confetti and flower petals rained down from above. Ji Hanchuan lifted Song Wanqing's veil, lowered his head, and kissed her. The camera zoomed in, clearly showing his closed eyes, his eyelashes casting a small shadow on his cheeks. The kiss lasted a long, long time. In the waiting area, someone began to applaud, so long that I felt the prenatal checkup form in my hand was being squeezed until it grew hot, its edges already wrinkled. The nurse gently touched my shoulder. "Ms. When, it's your turn. Director Lee is waiting for you in examination room 2. I turned to look at him, my vision slightly blurry. "Ms. When, okay." I heard my own voice, unnervingly calm. "I'll go now." When I stood up, my legs felt a bit weak. I steadied myself against the back of the chair, took a deep breath, and then walked step by step toward the examination room. Behind me, the cheers from the screen continued, mixed with the MC's excited announcement. "Now, let us all raise our glasses to toast the newlyweds." The door to the examination room closed behind me, and half the world fell silent. Director Lee was a special expert arranged by Gigabyte, in his 50s, wearing gold-rimmed glasses. He smiled and gestured for me to lie down on the examination bed. "Xiao Wen is here, Mr. G isn't with you today." I didn't speak, just handed him the prenatal checkup form. He took the form and, while looking at it, said, "Last time the checkup said the placenta was a bit low. This time, we'll focus on whether it has moved up. Don't be nervous. Many pregnant women experience this in the early stages." Cold coupling gel was applied to my abdomen. The ultrasound probe pressed down and slid over the skin. The screen lit up. The black and white image flickered a few times, then stabilized. 2 small figures curled up in the amniotic fluid, their beating hearts visible, tiny limbs. "The twins are developing well." Director Lee's voice carried a professional gentleness. "Look, this is the older brother, and this is the younger sister. The older brother is kicking the younger sister." I stared at the screen, at the 2 little ones, my children with Ji Hanchuan. Legally, he was still my husband. Our marriage certificate was still locked in the bank's safe deposit box. Even though I hadn't seen that red booklet in almost a year, Mrs. Ji had brought up divorce half a year ago, and I had signed the papers, but Ji Hanchuan never did. She said he was busy, that there was no need to rush, that it would be more secure to finalize the divorce after the children were born. What an ironic word, secure. The fetal heartbeats were both strong. Dr. Lee handed me a few tissues. "Wipe up. Make sure to rest well and don't overexert yourself. You look a bit pale. Did you skip lunch?" I slowly sat up and used the tissues to wipe the ultrasound gel off my abdomen. "Dr. Lee," I began, my voice slightly hoarse, "if a pregnant woman experiences a major emotional shock, how much does it affect the baby?" He adjusted his glasses. "That depends on the nature of the shock. Generally, short-term intense emotional fluctuations can be regulated by the mother's own mechanisms, but long-term," he paused, studying my face. "Xiao Wen, are you going through something?" I shook my head and stepped down from the examination bed. "No, I was just asking." When I walked out of the consultation room, the screen in the clinic area had switched back to a pregnancy education video, this time about managing diet for gestational diabetes. The pregnant women who had been watching the live stream earlier had dispersed. Some were scrolling through their phones, others were whispering among themselves. Occasionally, I caught phrases like "Ji Hanchuan and Song Wanqing are such a perfect match." I walked past them and headed straight downstairs. The hospital lobby was even more bustling, with long lines at the payment windows and crowds gathered around the information desk. I pushed through the crowd and opened the glass door. The afternoon sun at 3:30 hit me squarely in the face, and my phone vibrated in my bag. I pulled it out, and the name Ji Hanchuan flashed on the screen. My finger hovered over the answer button for 3 seconds before I swiped to reject the call. The vibration stopped. A few seconds later, it started vibrating again. This time, it was a text message. "Family dinner at 7 p.m. tonight. Mother insists you attend. The driver will pick you up at 5. I stared at the words and suddenly laughed out loud. As I laughed, my eyes grew a little warm. I looked up at the massive outdoor screen on the wall of the shopping mall across the street. At some point, it had also started broadcasting the wedding live. The camera was focused on the cake-cutting ceremony, with Ji Hanchuan holding Song Wanqing's hand as they both gripped the cake knife. Song Wanqing's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled, her whole body almost pressed against him. Ji Hanchuan's face showed little expression, but he didn't push her away. He even whispered something in her ear, making her laugh even more happily. My phone vibrated again, this time. It was from old Mrs. G. I saw the news. Hanchuan and Wanqing are holding their engagement banquet today. The formal wedding will be held after the child is born. Come over tonight, and let's clear some things up. Don't make a scene, it won't do you any good. I turned off my phone screen and stuffed it back into my bag, then reached out to hail a taxi. The driver rolled down the window and asked, "Where to?" "Jinsho Garden," I replied. Giving the name of the neighborhood where my close friend Xiao Wei lived, the car merged into the traffic, and I leaned against the window, watching the city scenery pass by frame. As we passed Century Square, the large screen there was also broadcasting the wedding live. A crowd had gathered below, looking up, and a girl was even recording a video on her phone. "So romantic," the driver remarked casually, glancing over. "The weddings of the wealthy are just different. I heard the jewelry on that actress is worth a whole apartment." I didn't respond, and he continued on his own. "But these high society marriages, they might look glamorous on the surface, but who knows what goes on behind closed doors." My phone vibrated in my bag again. I pulled it out, it was an unfamiliar number. After a moment's hesitation, I answered, "Miss Wen." It was a young man's voice, speaking quickly. "I'm a reporter from News Weekly. We received a tip that you are actually Mr. Ji Hanchuan's legal wife, and today's wedding between him and Ms. Song Wanqing involves bigamy. Can you comment on this?" I tightened my grip on the phone. "Miss Wen, are you still there? You've got the wrong person," I said calmly, "but we have evidence showing that you and Mr. Ji Hanchuan registered your marriage 3 years ago, and you are currently pregnant," I said. "You've got the wrong person." I hung up the phone and turned it off directly. The taxi stopped at the entrance of Jinsho Garden. I paid the fare, got out, and walked into the residential complex. Xiao Wei's home was in Building 18. Familiar with the way, I took the elevator up, rang the doorbell, and waited nearly a minute before the door opened. Xiao Wei was wearing a robe, her hair a mess, clearly just out of bed. She froze when she saw me. "Hey, why are you here at this hour? Isn't today your prenatal checkup?" I stepped inside, closed the door behind me, and slowly slid down to sit on the floor, leaning against the door. "Wei." I looked up at her. "I need a favor." "What's wrong?" Xiao Wei immediately crouched down and grabbed my hand. "Your hands are so cold, and your face is frighteningly pale. Did the Ji family bully you again?" I shook my head, then nodded, and finally just said, "I need to disappear." Xiao Wei's eyes widened. "What? Ji Hanchuan and Song Wanqing are getting married today?" I spoke word by word, my voice eerily calm even to myself. It was live-streamed everywhere. The screen in the hospital waiting room was playing it during my prenatal checkup. Xiao Wei's expression shifted from confusion to shock, her face flushing red with anger. "He's insane. You're not even divorced yet, this is bigamy. I'll sue him, it's useless." I cut her off. The Ji family can twist the truth however they want. Besides, I signed the divorce papers, he just never did, in their eyes. I'm no longer the young mistress of the Ji family, but that still doesn't mean Wei. I gripped her hand tightly. "Help me, I need to leave here, tonight." "But you're 5 months pregnant, that's why I need you." I met her eyes. "You have connections at the airline, right? Help me get a ticket for tonight, to anywhere abroad. Don't use my ID, book it under your name. I'll pick it up at the airport." Xiao Wei's lips were trembling. She, think about it again. This is too risky. You're alone and pregnant with twins. Staying here is even more dangerous. I let go of her hand, pushed myself up from the floor, and said, "Old Mrs. G wants me to attend the family dinner tonight. Do you know what that means? He's going to make me admit in front of all the relatives that Song Wanqing is the future mistress of the Ji family. He wants me to sign an agreement giving up custody of the children, then take a sum of money and leave like a beggar." I walked to the living room window, pulled back the curtains, and the afternoon sunlight at 4 o'clock flooded in, stinging my eyes. "I've already made up my mind," I said, turning my back to Xiao Wei. "I will give birth to the children, but I won't let them bear the Ji name. They are my children alone." There was silence behind me for a long time. And then I heard Xiao Wei sniffle. "Okay," she said hoarsely, "I'll help you." She rushed into the bedroom and soon came out with a laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "There's a direct flight to Singapore at 9:45 tonight. There are still 2 seats in business class. I'll book them under my information. When you get to the airport, go to the VIP counter and give my name to get the tickets. Once you're in Singapore, you can stay at my aunt's place first. She's a good person and will take care of you. After you settle down, we can make further plans. Wei. I turned to look at her. Don't tell anyone about this, including your aunt. She froze. Why? Does the G family have long reach? I walked back to the sofa and sat down, gently stroking my abdomen. I don't want to involve anyone. Once I'm in Singapore, I'll find a place to stay on my own. Don't worry, I still have some money in my card, enough to last for a while. It's what I've secretly saved over the past 3 years. Every month, old Mrs. G gave me an allowance. I didn't spend a single cent of it and deposited it all into an overseas account. It's not much, 800,000, but it's enough for me to start over. Qiao Wei's eyes reddened again. She, why do you have to live so hard? Because I don't want to be a caged canary anymore, I said softly. The sound of a car horn came from outside the window. I walked to the window and looked down. A black Mercedes was parked downstairs, the G family's car. Old Zhong, the driver, got out of the driver's seat and was taking out his phone, ready to make a call. They're here, I said. Qiao Wei rushed to the window. So soon? It's only 4:30. Old Mrs. G has never liked to be kept waiting, I said, turning and walking toward the door. I'm going down. Send the flight information to my phone. I'll contact you when I get to the airport. 11:11. Qiao Wei grabbed my arm, and tears finally fell. You must be careful. Let me know as soon as you arrive safely over there. I hugged him. I will. Then I pulled open the door and walked out. As the elevator descended, I looked at my face in the mirror, pale and haggard, with faint dark circles under my eyes. But my eyes were bright, shining like a blade tempered by fire. First floor arrived. I stepped out of the elevator, pushed open the unit door, and old Zhong saw me, quickly putting away his phone. Young madam. The old madam sent me to pick you up. I got into the car, and it drove out of the residential complex, merging into the evening rush hour traffic. Old Zhong glanced at me several times in the rearview mirror, hesitating to speak, but in the end, he couldn't hold back. Young madam, did you see the news today? I did. I looked out the window at the grand wedding. Old Zhong fell silent. The car fell into quiet, with only the faint sound of air from the air conditioning vents. I closed my eyes and silently counted down in my heart. 5 months. 500 days. Ji Hanchuan, old Madam Ji, Song Wanqing. I will remember every single debt between us. When I return, the rules of the game will be set by me. Word count, 598. I didn't attend the G family banquet. The black Mercedes-Benz carrying me didn't head toward the G family's old mansion. When we were 3 intersections away from the old mansion, I patted the back of the driver's seat. Uncle Zhong, pull over. Old Zhong looked at me in confusion through the rearview mirror. Young madam, we're not there yet. I feel a bit car sick and want to throw up. I covered my mouth, my voice muffled. Just stop for a minute. The car slowly pulled over. As soon as I pushed the car door open, I bent over and started dry heaving. Old Zhong quickly unbuckled his seatbelt, got out of the car, and came around to help me. Young madam, are you okay? Do you need some water? Now was the moment. I straightened up abruptly and, before old Zhong could react, rushed toward the open entrance of the underground parking lot beside the sidewalk. The sound of high heels tapping against the ground echoed through the empty garage. As I ran, I took off my coat and pulled out a pre-prepared dark grey hoodie from my large shoulder bag. Slipping it on, young madam, old Zhong's shouts came from behind me, but I didn't look back. There's another exit in the underground garage that leads directly to a back alley, where Qiao Wei's car is parked. It's an inconspicuous white domestic hatchback with a license plate from Ling Province. I pulled open the door and got in. As soon as I was inside, Qiao Wei immediately started the car and fastened his seatbelt. His voice was tense as the car shot forward. I looked out the back window and saw old Zhong chasing us to the mouth of the alley. Standing there looking around in confusion before finally pulling out his phone in frustration. He must be calling the G family. Qiao Wei sharply turned the steering wheel, merging the car into the flow of traffic on the main road. We need to get to the airport quickly. I fished the already powered-off phone from my bag, rolled down the window, and tossed it directly into a passing sanitation garbage truck. Qiao Wei's eyes widened. Anything that can be used to track me can't stay, I said calmly, pulling a brand new phone from my bag, powering it on, and inserting a pre-prepared anonymous SIM card. Vivi, is the flight ticket confirmed? Confirmed. Xiao Wei handed me a file folder. The passport, visa, and flight confirmation are all inside. I used the expedited business visa I helped you apply for. The photo is the one from 3 months ago, but the name is Xiao Yu, my distant cousin's identity. My aunt in Singapore will help you settle in. But she only knows you're my friend going there to rest during pregnancy. She knows nothing else. I opened the passport. The photo showed a slightly thinner version of me with a different look in my eyes. Back then, there was still light in them. Now, only cold emptiness remained. Thank you. I hugged the file folder to my chest, as if holding on to my last lifeline. We didn't speak on the way to the airport. The evening glow dyed the city orange-red. And the elevated highway was congested with cars, their taillights forming a river of red. I stared out the window, frame by frame, taking in the city I had lived in for 25 years, where I was born, where I studied, where I met Jihan, where I put on that priceless yet utterly cold engagement ring. Now, I was leaving, carrying 2 little lives inside me who had yet to see this world. Joey suddenly spoke up, her voice a bit hoarse. Are you sure you want to go down this path? Giving birth and raising a child alone abroad will be very tough. I turned to look at her and smiled. Would staying with the G family be any less tough? She fell silent. We arrived at the international departures level of the airport. Joey parked the car in the temporary parking area, turned around, and hugged me tightly. Contact me as soon as you arrive. Check in with me every day to let me know you're safe. If you run out of money, tell me, and I'll transfer some to you. You've already helped me enough, I replied. Don't actively reach out to me for the next few years. If the G family comes asking, just say you know nothing. But listen to me. I let go of her and opened the car door. Wait for me to contact you. Dragging a small carry-on suitcase, I walked into the terminal. Inside the suitcase were only a few changes of clothes, essential documents, and a bottle of folic acid. Everything else that belonged to the identity of when she was left behind in the G family's luxurious yet cold villa, that included the 3-carat wedding ring, which I placed in the most prominent spot on the dressing table. What expression would Ji Hanshu have when he saw it? I didn't know, and I no longer cared. Check-in, security, waiting at 9:45 p.m. The plane took off on time, as the aircraft lifted off the runway and soared into the night sky. I watched the gradually shrinking city lights outside the window and gently placed my hand over my abdomen. Baby, I whispered, Mom is taking you to a new world. Singapore's rainy season was hot and humid. Joey's aunt, Xiao Jing, was a kind middle-aged woman who ran a small traditional Chinese medicine clinic locally. She settled me into a small apartment above the clinic, 2 bedrooms and a living room, old but clean. You're here to rest during your pregnancy. It wouldn't be convenient at home, Joey said. Xiao Jing brought me a bowl of chicken soup. Stay here and don't worry. If you need anything, just let me know. I don't have many patients here usually, and it's quiet upstairs, perfect for resting. I gratefully took the bowl. Thank you, Aunt Xiao. Don't mention it, she said, sitting down across from me and looking at my belly. 5 months with twins must be tough. You look so thin. From now on, come down every day, and I'll check your pulse and help you recuperate. And so, I settled into this small apartment in a foreign land. For the first 2 months, I hardly went out, spending my days at Xiao Jing's clinic helping to organize medicinal herbs and learning to identify those dried roots and leaves. In the afternoons, he would take my pulse and perform acupuncture, and in the evenings, I would read the traditional Chinese medicine texts he had collected upstairs. My belly grew bigger day by day. And by the 7th month, it was so large I could no longer see my toes. Late one night, as I leaned against the headboard reading, a sharp, wrenching pain suddenly shot through my abdomen. My water had broken. Gritting my teeth, I fumbled for my phone and dialed Xiao Jing's number. Startled awake, she rushed upstairs within 5 minutes, took one look at me, and immediately called an ambulance. On the way to the hospital, the contractions grew more and more intense with each wave. I gripped Xiao Jing's hand so tightly my nails nearly dug into her flesh. Deep breaths, she kept repeating, but the tension in her voice was unmistakable. The twins were born 7 weeks premature, and I knew the risks. By the time I was wheeled into the delivery room, the pain had blurred my consciousness. The shadowless lamp overhead glared blindingly white, and the midwife's voice seemed to come from somewhere far away. Push, push again. I don't know how much time passed before a baby's cry pierced the air, followed by a second one. The older brother came first, and his sister followed 30 seconds later. The nurse brought the 2 swaddled bundles to me. "Congratulations," she said. "Even though they're premature, their cries are strong. They should be fine." I turned my head and looked at those 2 red, wrinkled little faces. Tears welled up in my eyes without warning. "The older brother is Wen Che," I said hoarsely. "The younger sister is Wen Yu, Che, as in clear and pure, Yu, as in joy and delight." These were names I had thought of long ago, back when I was still lying on that large bed in the Ji family home, staring up at the ornate crystal chandelier on the ceiling, imagining the future. Qiao Jing, her eyes reddening, nodded and said, "Good names." I spent my postpartum month at the clinic, where Qiao Jing cared for me almost as if I were her own daughter, preparing a variety of nourishing soups and porridges for me every day. Because Wentz and Wen Yu were born prematurely, they spent a month in the hospital incubator before they could be brought home. They were tiny, but their vitality was strong. When the children were 3 months old, I made my first decision. "Aunt Xiao, I want to rent a storefront next to your clinic." I pushed a bank card in front of Qiao Jing. "This card has 600,000 yuan, which is all my savings. I want to open a maternal and infant care center." Qiao Jing was stunned. "Hehe, you're still in the lactation period, and your body hasn't fully recovered yet. I can't wait." I looked at the 2 children sleeping soundly in the cradle. "I need to stand up as soon as possible. Half of this money will be used to rent and renovate the storefront, and the other half I want to learn traditional Chinese medicine postpartum care from you." She looked at me for a long time and finally sighed. "You're too stubborn, child. If I weren't stubborn, I would have died in the Ji family long ago." The storefront was quickly rented, right next to the clinic. It was 50 square meters and used to be a small cafe. I drew the design plans myself, light wood tones, soft lighting, a whole wall for nursing rooms, and a dedicated traditional Chinese medicine steaming room. On the day the sign for Shiguang Maternal and Infant Care Center was hung, the sunlight was beautiful. Wen Yu babbled and waved her little hands in the stroller, while Wentz watched quietly with eyes that looked exactly like that person's, but the expression in them was completely different. They were the eyes of my child, no coldness, no calculation, only pure curiosity. For the first 3 months after opening, there wasn't a single customer. Qiao Jing referred a few of her postpartum patients to me, which counted as the first business. I drew on the skills I had learned while studying business, designing service packages, creating flyers, and even learning how to build a simple website. The first batch of customers were Chinese mothers from the neighborhood. After trying my traditional Chinese medicine steaming and postpartum meridian massages, word of mouth spread, and gradually, more customers came. When the children were 1 year old, Shiguang had already hired 3 employees. I worked at the center during the day, took care of the children at night, and studied for Singapore's local maternal and infant care certification courses late into the night. It was exhausting, but every day felt solid. Wentz spoke first. One early morning, he sat in his crib, looked at me, and clearly said, "Mema." I burst into tears on the spot. Wen Yu was a month later in speaking, but he walked first. When he wobbled into my arms, he giggled non-stop. During those days, my phone was filled with their photos and videos, but I didn't dare send a single one to Qiao Wei. How powerful is Jijia's influence? I know all too well. Any digital trace could become a clue. I could only write all my longing and their growth records in a thick diary, waiting for the day when I could stand openly in the sunlight. In the 3rd year, Shiguang opened its 2nd branch. I obtained an internationally certified postpartum rehabilitation specialist qualification, and the postpartum recovery course I designed, which integrated traditional Chinese medicine with modern technology, was even featured in a local parenting magazine. In the 4th year, I expanded the business to early childhood education, renting a 3-story building. The 1st floor housed the nursing center, the 2nd floor was for early education classrooms, and the 3rd floor was where I lived with the children. The business was thriving, But I never stopped gathering information. Xiao Wei visited me in Singapore twice a year, each time bringing news about Gigabyte. Ji Hanchuan and Song Wanqing never got married. She lowered her voice while playing with Wanla. After the wedding, Ji Hanchuan suddenly changed his mind and never registered the marriage. Song Wanqing made a fuss several times, but old Mrs. Ji suppressed it. I was reading a picture book to Wenchen when my fingers paused at the news. Why did he change his mind? No one knows. There were rumors that Ji Hanchuan was searching for someone, frantically pulling up all the surveillance footage from the day you disappeared, every possible intersection, bus station, and airport. But your ID card had no usage records, and he couldn't find any information because I used Xiao Yu's passport. As for Song Wanqing, she still holds the title of Ji Hanchuan's fiancée, but everyone in the circle knows the Ji family never acknowledged her. Old Mrs. Ji doesn't seem satisfied with her either, thinking her background as an actress is not respectable. Xiao Jing curled her lips. Serves her right. She should have thought of this day when she interfered in someone else's marriage. I closed the picture book and sent the younger sister to play with building blocks. The two children obediently held hands and went to the play area. The G Group has been expanding its maternal and infant sector in recent years. I walked to the desk and turned on the computer. They acquired several domestic maternal and infant brands and launched a high-end postpartum care center last year. But I pulled up a document. I had someone check their product quality inspection reports, and 3 batches of baby care products exceeded bacterial limits, but it was suppressed. Xiao Wei leaned over. How did you find out? Money can make the devil turn the millstone, I said calmly. The G family is a big target, and many people want to catch their weaknesses. I'm just one of them. Cece, what do you want to do? I looked at the screen, which displayed the logo of the Jisha Group, the family business I once thought I would dedicate my life to. I want to go back, I said. Xiao Wei gasped. Are you crazy? Ji Hanchuan is still looking for you, if you go back. So I need a new identity. I turned around and took a file from the safe. Shiguang had already gained recognition in Singapore's maternal and infant industry. I planned to return to China with high profile under the guise of a foreign brand entering the Chinese market. I would continue to use the name Wenxi, but no longer as Wenxi, the young mistress of the Ji family, but as Wenxi, the founder of Shiguang. This is too risky. Wei, I interrupted him. I've been hiding for 4 years. The children are 4 years old now, they should know where their roots are. And, I walked to the window, looking at the 2 small figures playing on the slide in the garden downstairs. Some accounts need to be settled. In the spring of the 5th year, the preparations for Shiguang's domestic headquarters officially began. I registered the company, assembled a team, and rented 2 floors of office space in a top-tier downtown office building. The night before returning to China, I sat by the floor-to-ceiling window of my apartment, gazing at the night view of Singapore. My phone contained an anonymous email attachment I had received that day, a video, surveillance footage from the waiting hall of a maternity hospital, dated that afternoon 5 years ago. In the footage, I clutched my stomach, my face pale as I stared at the large screen, which showed the live broadcast of Ji Hanchuan and Song Wanqing's wedding. The body of the email had only one line. What you requested has been obtained. Please transfer the final payment to the following account. I closed the video and opened another folder containing everything I had collected over the past 5 years. Internal documents about quality inspection fraud in Jisha's maternal and infant products. Records of the Ji family matriarch suppressing competitors through shady means. Ambiguous photos of Song Wanqing and a certain director. Evidence of tax evasion by several collateral relatives of the Ji family, and a blank template for a DNA test report. I picked up the photo of me and my 2 children on the table, taken on Sentosa Beach. In the sunset, I crouched in the middle, with Wentz and Wenyu kissing my cheeks on either side. My darlings, I whispered, tomorrow, we're going home. The city lights outside the window sparkled brilliantly, like a silent feast, and I knew that the real battlefield was in the city 4,000 kilometers away, the city I had left 5 years ago. Ji Hanchuan, I'm back. Are you ready for me? The plane landed at Capital International Airport at 3 in the afternoon. Wenche was leaning against the window next to me, her little face pressed close to the glass. Mom, is this where you were born? Amham, I said, fastening her seatbelt. It's also where you and your sister were born. When you, sitting in the seat across the aisle, was intently fiddling with a Rubik's Cube in her hands. Hearing us talk, she looked up and blinked her eyes, inherited from me but brighter. Is Dad here? The cabin fell silent for a moment. Assistant Xiao Chen, sitting in the back row, instinctively glanced at me. Calmly, I straightened Wanla's collar. Dad is very far away. Let's go see Aunt Weiwei first. Okay. Oh. When you nodded and went back to playing with the Rubik's Cube, she wasn't particularly fixated on the answer. Over the past 4 years of growing up, Dad had only been an occasional concept in fairy tale books. I had never deliberately erased it, but I had never brought it up on my own either. The plane came to a stop, and the jet bridge connected. Holding each child by the hand, I walked down the aisle. 5 years of distance vanished the moment I took my first step onto this land. The scent in the air, the mandarin on the announcements, even the familiar faces on the advertisements, everything reminded me that I was back. At the exit of the VIP passage, Qiao Wei was already waiting. He practically sprinted over and hugged me tightly. You brat, 5 years. Do you know how I've spent these 5 years? His voice choked with tears. I patted his back. I'm sorry. What good is sorry? He let go of me, his eyes red, and crouched down to look at the 2 children. This is Che Che and Yaya. Oh my, they've grown so much. Let Auntie give you a hug. When Che shyly hid behind me, while Wenyu confidently opened her arms. Weiwei, Auntie, Mom often shows us your photos. Such good kids. Qiao Wei picked up Wenyu and reached out to pat Wench's head. Come on, Auntie will take you to eat something delicious. On the way to the city center, Qiao Wei finally calmed down and began to report on the formal business dinner scheduled for tomorrow evening. The invitation had already been secured. The event was hosted by the Ministry of Commerce, with high standards, and all notable entrepreneurs in the country would be attending. Ji Hanchuan had confirmed his attendance. He pulled out a tablet from his bag and brought up a list. This was his activity over the past 3 years. The maternal and infant sector of the G Group had expanded rapidly, but growth had slowed since last year. This year, they aimed to launch a high-end postpartum care center brand, which directly conflicted with Shiguang's positioning. I looked at the photo of Ji Hanchuan on the tablet, still the same face, with deep-set features and cold, stern eyes, though a few fine lines had appeared at the corners of his eyes, and his gaze seemed heavier. He had aged a bit. As for Song Wanqing, she had signed as the spokesperson for G Group's maternal and infant products 6 months ago, with press releases flooding the media, touting her as the future Mrs. G and emphasizing product safety. However, in private, she and Ji Hanchuan were rarely seen together. Rumors suggested that old Mrs. G had forced her to sign a prenuptial agreement, and the ensuing uproar had been suppressed. I nodded, my gaze falling on the next name. The Lin Group was also attending. That's right. Lin Shaoqian took over the family business 3 years ago and has been focusing on investments in the healthcare sector over the past 2 years. Last week, he even inquired about Shiguang through an intermediary. Lowering my voice, I asked, do you remember Lin Shaoqian? Remember? How could I forget? He was the senior who pursued me for 2 years in college. After I turned him down, he went abroad for further studies and returned as the successor to the Lin family. The world is so small. Does he know that I'm the founder of Shiguang? Probably not. I've been using the English name Selena. Even the company's public registration and promotions have always used that name. But you'll definitely need to use your Chinese name at tomorrow's dinner. It doesn't matter. I turned off the tablet. Sooner or later, we'll have to meet. The car stopped in front of a top-tier apartment building in the city center. This was a property I had purchased in advance, a high-floor unit with 270-degree views and tight security. Qiao Wei accompanied us upstairs. Looking at the spacious living room and the playroom specially designed for the children, she let out a sigh of relief. This is quite good. The property management is run by a friend's company, so you don't need to worry about safety. Thank you, I replied politely. She glanced at her watch. I have to go. There's a meeting tonight. I'll pick you up at 5 tomorrow afternoon to get you ready. After seeing Qiao Wei off, I took the children to familiarize themselves with our new home. Wenyu excitedly ran around every room, while Wen Ce stood quietly by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the endless stream of cars below. Suddenly, she spoke up. Did we come back this time to fight a war? My heart skipped a beat. I crouched down to meet her eyes. Why do you ask? Because Auntie Wei looked very serious when she was talking. And Mom, you were frowning when you looked at the documents. When Che's little hand touched my brow, where wrinkles had formed. I held his hand tightly. Mommy does have some things to handle, but you and your sister just need to grow up happily. Leave the rest to Mommy. She looked at me for a long time, then finally nodded and said, okay, I'll protect my sister. In that moment, the seriousness in her eyes made me almost see the shadow of another person. I hugged her tightly. Mommy will protect you too. The next day at 5 in the afternoon, Xiao Wei arrived on time with the styling team. 2 hours later, I looked at myself in the mirror. I was wearing a dark green velvet gown with minimalist tailoring, but the waistline was cinched perfectly, accentuating my figure. My long hair was styled into an elegant updo, and simple pearl earrings adorned my ears. The makeup was light but highlighted my eyes and brows, the part of my face that looked the least like my former self, 5 years ago, that gentle and timid when she had died before the screen during that live-streamed wedding. Now standing here was Selena, the founder of Shiguang. Perfect. Xiao Wei circled around me. When Ji Hanchuan sees you, his eyes are going to pop out. When you ran out of the room, hugging my leg, Mommy, you're so pretty. When Che followed behind, already dressed in his little suit, that evening, they would be taken to a children's theme restaurant by Xiao Wei's assistant, and I would pick them up after the banquet. Listen to Auntie, I said, bending down to kiss both children on the forehead. Mommy will be back soon. The banquet was held in the rotating banquet hall on the top floor of the International Trade Tower. As the elevator ascended, the city's lights spread out like a galaxy through the glass curtain wall. Xiao Wei held my arm and whispered, don't be nervous. Tonight, you're just here to make an appearance and let the circle know that Shiguang has arrived. The rest will come slowly. I'm not nervous, I said. The elevator doors opened, and the banquet hall was already bustling with figures. Crystal chandeliers refracted dazzling light, while the air flowed with the sound of piano music and the fizz of champagne. Waiters weaved through the crowd with trays, and among the elegant dresses and coiffed hair were familiar and unfamiliar faces. As soon as we stepped inside, someone approached us. Mr. Qiao, long time no see. A middle-aged man with a receding hairline warmly extended his hand. This is Mr. Wang, let me introduce you. Qiao smiled and turned slightly. This is Selena Wensi, the founder of Shiguang Maternal and Infant Care brand, 1111. This is Mr. Wang from Huarong Investment, MS. Wen, you are truly young and accomplished. Mr. Wang shook my hand, his gaze lingering on my face for a few seconds. Have we met somewhere before? Perhaps I just have a common face. I smiled and withdrew my hand, exchanging a few pleasantries before more people came over to greet us. Xiao Wei had built her PR company into a thriving success over the years, and her network was extensive. He guided me around, and soon I had collected over a dozen business cards. Selena, a gentle male voice sounded behind me. I turned around. Lin Xiaoqian stood 2 steps away, holding a champagne glass. Smiling as he looked at me, he had matured a lot since our university days. His eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses were still gentle, but now carried the sharpness of a businessman. Mr. Lin. I extended my hand. I've long heard of you. He took my hand but didn't let go immediately. It really is you. I heard the founder of Shiguang was Wensi, who returned from Singapore, and thought it might be someone with the same name. The world is small. I withdrew my hand. Indeed, his gaze fell on my face, scrutinizing me without restraint. You've changed a lot. 5 years is enough to change a person. Xiao Wei chimed in at the right moment. Mr. Lin, you know each other from university. Lin Xiaoqian smiled. When she was the belle of our School of Economics and Management back then, the line of people chasing after her could stretch from the teaching building all the way to the school gate. You're exaggerating, senior. I picked up the orange juice handed to me by the waiter. I don't drink, and I needed to stay absolutely clear-headed tonight. As we were chatting, a sudden commotion erupted at the entrance of the banquet hall. I didn't need to turn around to know who had arrived. That kind of magnetic field, that kind of atmosphere, only Ji Hanchuan could create it. Xiao Wei instinctively tightened her grip on my arm. I gently patted the back of her hand and continued speaking with Lin Xiaoqian as if nothing had happened. I've heard that Lin's investment in private hospitals includes a comprehensive technical solution for postpartum recovery at Shiguang. Perhaps we can find an opportunity to discuss cooperation. Of course, but Lin Xiaoqian's gaze drifted past me toward the entrance. Mr. G has arrived. Should we go over and say hello? No rush. I took a sip of my orange juice. The banquet is still long. Even as I said this, I could feel a gaze like a stone needle piercing my back. The sound of leather shoes tapping against the marble floor grew closer, and the surrounding conversations unconsciously quieted down as the crowd automatically parted to make way. I turned around. And Ji Hanchuan was standing just a few steps away from me. He wore a dark grey suit without a tie, the top button of his shirt undone. 5 years had left their mark on his face, not aging, but a kind of cold, hardened refinement, as if repeatedly tempered. His eyes were deeper, his jawline sharper, and he seemed like a blade that had been drawn and stained with blood. He looked at me, his gaze sliding from my face down to my body and back to my face. In his eyes, there was shock, disbelief, and finally, a deep, unfathomable darkness. When he said, his voice deeper than I remembered, Mr. G. I smiled and raised my glass in my hand. Long time no see. The air froze, and everyone around held their breath. Who didn't know about the sensational disappearance of the young mistress of the Ji family 5 years ago? Who didn't know that Ji Hanchuan had been searching for this woman for a full 5 years? And now, he appeared here just like that, radiant and composed. As if he had just returned from a long vacation abroad. Ji Hanchuan took a step forward, and I caught the familiar scent of cedar on him, still the same brand of cologne, unchanged for 5 years. Where have you been? He asked. His voice was low, but every word seemed to be forced through gritted teeth. Singapore. I replied casually. Started a company, doing quite well. And you, Mr. G? I heard the G Group has been thriving these past few years. Congratulations. He stared at me, as if trying to find any trace of pretense on my face, but there was none. 5 years I had truly changed, from the inside out. You, his Adam's apple bobbed. When did you come back? This afternoon. I maintained my smile. Just in time for the banquet. Mr. G, let me introduce you. This is Mr. Lin Xiaoqian, the head of the Lin Group, my university senior. Mr. Lin, this is Mr. G of the G Group. I believe you know Mr. Lin Xiaoqian. Timely to extend a hand. Mr. G, long time no admiration. Ji Hanchuan glanced at him, did not shake hands, his gaze returning to my face. Let's talk, it's not very convenient right now. I glanced around, the banquet was still ongoing. I was here as a representative of Shiguang and had to fulfill my social obligations. How about I have my assistant schedule a time with your secretary another day? When he took another step forward, almost touching me. Don't play this game with me. The smile on my face faded. Mr. G. I raised my eyes to meet his gaze. This is a public occasion. Please mind your manners. There seems to be no private matter between us that needs discussing. No private matter. He seemed to have heard a joke, the corner of his mouth curling into a cold arc. You are my legal wife, missing for 5 years. And now you suddenly appear. You say there's no private matter. Suppressed gasps sounded around us. Qiao Wei's face turned pale, wanting to speak, but I stopped her with a look. I set down the juice glass. The base of the glass touched the table with a crisp sound. Legal wife, I repeated, my voice not loud but clear enough. Has Mr. G forgotten that I signed a divorce agreement 5 years ago? Although you didn't sign it, we have been separated for 5 years, and the relationship has broken down. I have already entrusted a lawyer to formally file for divorce proceedings. The relevant documents will be sent to the G Group's legal department next Monday. Ji Hanchuan's face instantly darkened. You want a divorce, isn't this what you and Mrs. G have always hoped for? I smiled. I'm just fulfilling your wishes. After speaking, I no longer looked at his expression. Turning to Lin Xiaoqian, I said, Senior, regarding the cooperation proposal you mentioned earlier, I have a detailed plan. I'll have my assistant send it to your company tomorrow. Lin Xiaoqian looked at me deeply. All right, I'll wait for your message. I nodded to him. Then took Qiao Wei's arm. Wei, let's go meet Minister Li. I heard his wife just had a second child. Perhaps she might be interested in our postpartum care. We turned and walked away. After a few steps, I could still feel that gaze firmly fixed on my back. Xiao Wei's hand was trembling. 11:11. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said softly. The latter half of the banquet had just begun, and Ji Hanchuan's gaze never left me. But I didn't look at him again. I mingled and chatted with all sorts of people, exchanging business cards, discussing potential collaborations, and even gave a 5-minute impromptu speech at the host's invitation, introducing the concept of Shiguang. The applause was enthusiastic. As I stepped off the stage, I saw Ji Hanchuan standing in the corner of the banquet hall, holding a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched, just watching me. There was so much in his eyes: anger, confusion, and a hint of bewilderment I had never seen before. The banquet ended at 10 in the evening. Xiao Wei went to get the car, and I waited at the hotel entrance. The night breeze was a bit chilly, so I tightened my shawl. I heard footsteps behind me. Wency, I didn't turn around. Ji Hanchuan walked over and stood beside me. The scent of alcohol mixed with cedar drifted in the night breeze. What about the child? He asked me. My heart tightened suddenly, but my expression remained calm. What are you asking about, Mr. G? 5 years ago, when you left, you were 5 months pregnant, he said, his voice hoarse. Did you give birth to the child? I turned around and finally looked him in the eye. Yes, I did, I said. Something flickered in his eyes. Yes. But it has nothing to do with you, I interrupted him. That's my child, mine alone. Wency, he grabbed my wrist, his grip so tight it hurt my bones. That's my child, I have the right to know. The right, I laughed, forcefully shaking off his hand. Ji Hanchuan, what right do you have? 5 years ago, when I was 5 months pregnant and going for a checkup, you were having a wedding with someone else, broadcast live for the whole world to see. Did you have the right to make me a laughingstock in front of everyone back then? He froze. Do you have the right to not even answer a phone call when I need you the most? Do you have the right to let your mother humiliate me over and over, forcing me to sign the custody waiver agreement? I stepped closer to him, my voice low but each word sharp as a blade. And now you tell me you have the right. Ji Hanchuan, you tore up your own rights with your own hands 5 years ago. His face turned pale. His lips moved, but no sound came out. The car lights cut through the night as Xiao Wei's car pulled over to the side of the road. I took one last look at him. Remember to sign the divorce agreement. Dragging it out won't do you any good. With that, I opened the car door and got in. As the car drove away, I saw him still standing motionless in the rearview mirror, like a frozen statue. Xiao Wei asked cautiously, what did he say? He asked about the child. I looked out the window at the neon lights flashing by. He guessed. What do we do now? I leaned back into the seat and closed my eyes. We stick to the plan. What's meant to come will come. Outside the car window, the city night remained as bustling as ever, but I knew that from tonight on, some things would never be the same again. At 7:30 on Monday morning, I stood with Wentz and Wanla at the entrance of Chenxi International Kindergarten, the most expensive private kindergarten in the city. It offered bilingual education, had tight security, and most importantly, required strict identity verification for enrollment. I had to use my identity as the founder of Shiguang and my status as a permanent resident of Singapore to secure 2 spots. Mom, this place is huge. When you looked up at the castle-like school building, her little face filled with excitement. Wench, on the other hand, quietly observed the surroundings. His small hand tightly holding onto my finger. The principal is a gentle-mannered woman around 40 years old, surnamed Chen. She personally received us and gave us a tour of the campus. Our kindergarten implements a small class system, with no more than 15 children per class. The bilingual teachers are all qualified foreign educators, and the curriculum includes STEAM, arts, physical education, and social-emotional learning. Principal Chen introduced as we walked, MS, when, rest assured. The parents of the children here are all highly educated, and the environment is very simple, very pure. I glanced at the luxury cars dropping off children not far away and said nothing. The enrollment process went smoothly. Wentz and Wenyu were placed in the same class, with a young and lively British girl as their homeroom teacher. The 2 children adapted quickly. Within 10 minutes, Wenyu had made friends with a little girl nearby. While Wentz sat quietly in the reading corner flipping through a picture book. They are excellent, Principal Chen praised, especially the older brother. His focus is remarkable. Thank you. I glanced at my watch. Then I'll pick them up at 4 p.m. If there are any issues, please contact me anytime. As soon as I stepped out of the kindergarten, my phone rang. It was the lawyer, Ms. When, the divorce papers have been delivered to the technical legal department. The other party refused to accept them, saying they need to confirm with Mr. G personally, then send them to the G family's old residence. I opened the car door, use registered mail and keep the proof. Understood. Also, regarding the child custody part, are you sure you want to state that the father voluntarily waives all visitation and custody rights? The court may not support such an absolute clause. Write it. I fastened my seatbelt. She doesn't deserve it. I hung up the phone and drove straight to the company. The domestic headquarters of Shiguang was still in the final stages of renovation, but the core team was already in place. During the morning meeting, the marketing director reported on the feedback from last night's banquet. 7 investment institutions had already reached out proactively to schedule detailed discussions. Additionally, 3 high-end private hospitals had expressed interest in collaboration, including Harmony Hospital under the Lin Group. Focus on following up with the Lin Group. I looked at the report. Lin Xiaoqian is a very steady person. If we can collaborate with him, it would greatly help us enter the domestic market. Understood. The marketing director hesitated for a moment. Also, from Jisha, their head of marketing called this morning to invite you for a meeting. The conference room fell silent for a moment. The reason given was to explore possibilities for industry collaboration. I closed the folder. Tell him my schedule is completely full recently. If he wants to talk, have him make a formal appointment through official business correspondence. After the meeting, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window in my office, watching the endless stream of cars below. This city was still the same, busy and crowded. Everyone was rushing toward their own goals. 5 years ago, I was one of them. 5 years later, I had returned, but I was no longer that when she who had to live under someone else's shadow. My phone vibrated. It was a call from the kindergarten. I answered immediately. Hello, Ms. When? This is Emma. The British girl's voice sounded a bit anxious. Wentz had a little disagreement with another child in the class. The other child's parent is already here. Would it be convenient for you to come over now? I'll be right there. When I arrived at the kindergarten, before even entering the office, I heard a woman's sharp voice inside. What's wrong with this child? So young and already hitting others. How were they raised? I pushed the door open. Inside the office, when Che was standing beside Emma, his little face tense, his clothes slightly disheveled. But he stood straight. Across from him, a chubby little boy was tugging at the hem of a young, well-dressed woman's clothes and crying, with a faint red mark on his face. And that woman, I recognized her. Although Song Wanqing was wearing sunglasses and a mask, that Chanel suit and her haughty demeanor were unmistakable. Hearing the door open, she turned her head, and her eyes behind the sunglasses widened abruptly the moment she saw me. It's you. I ignored her and walked straight to Wen Che, crouching down. Che, what happened? Wen Che saw me, and his tense shoulders relaxed slightly. Mom. He took my sister's toy first and pushed her down. I asked him to apologize, but he refused and even cursed at my sister. I pushed him. Just a push. Song Wanqing interrupted sharply. My son's face is red like this, and you call that a push? This is clearly hitting. A child with violent tendencies like this, does your kindergarten even accept them? The teacher tried to smooth things over. Mrs. G, it's just a small disagreement between children, a small disagreement. Song Wanqing took off her sunglasses, revealing a pair of meticulously made-up eyes. I've never laid a finger on my son since he was born, and now he's been hit by some wild child from who knows where. And you call it a small disagreement? The moment the words wild child left her mouth, the air in the office froze. I slowly stood up. Miss Song, I began, my voice calm. Please apologize. Me, apologize. Song Wanqing seemed to have heard a joke. Your son hit my son. And you want me to apologize? First, your son pushed my daughter first. Second, your words just now were insulting. I looked at her, speaking word by word. Please apologize to my child. Song Wanqing's expression changed. He looked me up and down, his gaze settling on my professional suit. It wasn't a luxury brand, but the cut and fabric clearly weren't cheap. Are you this child's mother? She raised an eyebrow. I've never seen you before. Are you new here? That's none of your business. I turned away. So, Teacher, I need to see the surveillance footage. The surveillance footage. They seemed hesitant. We need the principal's approval. Then please call the principal. Just as we were speaking, the office door was pushed open again, and a tall figure walked in, Ji Han-chwan. He must have come straight from the company. His suit jacket was draped over his arm, his shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing sturdy forearms. Seeing the situation in the office, his brow immediately furrowed. What's going on? Song Wanqing seemed to see a savior and immediately rushed over to cling to his arm. Han-chwan, you're finally here. Look at Xiao Jie's face. See how that child hit him. I asked them to apologize, and they're still acting so self-righteous. Ji Han-chwan's gaze swept over the crying little boy, then landed on Wen Che. In that instant, his expression froze. Time seemed to stretch, and the office was so quiet you could hear the air from the vents. Ji Han-chwan's eyes were locked on Wen Che's face, the eyebrows, the bridge of the nose, the way his lips were pressed together. It was all too similar. So similar that anyone who saw them would not doubt their blood relation. Wen Che was also looking at him. The 4-year-old's eyes were clear as water, without fear, without evasion, just calmly returning the gaze. Ji Han-chwan's voice was a bit hoarse. Who is he? Song Wanqing, unaware of the strangeness, was still complaining. They say he's newly transferred. The parents don't seem to know how to raise a child. I am his mother. I took a step forward, shielding Wen Che. Mr. Ji, we meet again. Ji Han-chwan's gaze finally shifted to my face. His eyes were as complex as an overturned palette. Shock, realization, anger, and a trace of pain. His Adam's apple bobbed. Ji Su, 4 years old. I answered straightforwardly. Birthday on December 17th. 5 months of pregnancy plus 7 months of premature birth. The timing matches up. Ji Han-chwan's face gradually paled. He let go of Song Wanqing's hand, took 2 steps forward, crouched down, and met Wen Chen's eye level. What's your name? Wen Chen looked at me. I nodded. Wen Chen, he said. The Chen as in clear. Wen Chen. Ji Han-chwan repeated the name, his voice as light as a sigh. Did your mother only teach you? Is there a sister? Wen Chen pointed to Wen Yu, who had been standing quietly beside them. She's called Wen Yu. Ji Han-chwan's gaze shifted to the little girl with 2 small braids, wearing a pink dress. Wen Yu shyly hid behind her mother. But those eyes almost identical to when she's made Ji Han-chwan stagger. He steadied himself by holding onto a nearby table. Song Wanqing finally noticed something was wrong. Han-chwan, what's wrong? Do you know them? Ji Han-chwan ignored her. He stood up and looked at me, his eyes bloodshot. You've been raising them all along. What else? I retorted. Wait for Madam Ji to send them to an orphanage. My mother, she's Mr. Ji. I interrupted him. Right now, we're dealing with the children's matter. Your son snatched my daughter's toy and pushed her down. My son pushed back to protect his sister. How do you think this should be handled? Ji Han-chwan took a deep breath, turned to the little boy who was still sobbing, and said, Shou Jie, tell the truth. Did you start it? The little boy, frightened by his serious tone, shrank behind Song Wanqing. Song Wanqing grew anxious. Han-chwan, Shou Jie is only 4 years old. What does he understand? Even if he started it, it's just kids roughhousing. But that child hit so hard. I'm asking you. Ji Han-chwan stared at the little boy. Did you push that little sister first? The little boy burst into tears. I just wanted to play with her doll. Apologize. Ji Han-chwan said. Song Wanqing couldn't believe it. Han-chwan, apologize. Ji Han-chwan repeated, his tone leaving no room for doubt. To the little sister you pushed, and to the brother you insulted. The little boy, sniffling, turned to Wen Yu and Wen Chen. I'm sorry. Wen Yu whispered, it's okay. Wen Chen didn't say anything, just looked at me. I said softly. He apologized. What about you? Wentz then looked at the little boy. I shouldn't have pushed you, but you can't bully my sister anymore. The little boy nodded. Okay. I turned to them. Teacher, since the matter is resolved, I'll take the children home first. I'll excuse them from this afternoon's class. All right, Ms. When, holding each child by the hand, I walked toward the door. As I passed by Ji Han-chwan, he reached out and stopped me. His voice was very low. We need to talk, Mr. Ji. I'm busy. I didn't look at him, and I don't think there's anything for us to discuss. They are my children. Finally unable to control himself, he raised his voice. I have rights. I looked up and met his eyes directly. Legally, You're just the person who provided half the sperm. In reality, you've never fulfilled a single day of a father's responsibility. Ji Han-chuan, if you have even a shred of shame left, don't play the loving father here." After saying that, I pulled the children past him and walked out of the office. The hallway was very quiet, and I could hear Song Wanqing's furious voice behind me. "Han-chuan, what does she mean? Is that child really yours? Say something." I didn't look back. I walked all the way to the parking lot, settled the two children into their car seats in the back, and only then did I realize my hands were trembling. "Mom," Wentz suddenly spoke up. "Is that man my dad?" My hands paused as I was fastening the seatbelt. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Wentz's calm little face, and Wenyu was also looking at me with wide eyes. What was bound to come had finally arrived. I turned around to look at them. Yes, but something very unpleasant happened between Mom and him. So Mom won't live with him, and you won't either. Just remember that Mom loves you, Aunt Weiwei loves you, and that's enough. "Okay," Wenche nodded and said, "Okay, but when you asked, does she love us?" My heart felt like it had been pricked by a needle. "Mom doesn't know," I answered honestly, "but Mom will give you double the love, so we don't need his." On the way home from the kindergarten, Wenyu quickly fell asleep, but Wenche kept looking out the window. As we neared home, he suddenly said, "Mom, I don't like him." "Why?" "Because he made you sad." Wench's voice was soft but firm. I could tell Mom's eyes looked sad when you saw him. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. A 4-year-old was already this perceptive. Che, I said softly. Mom was indeed sad before, but that was in the past. Now Mom has you, the company, and a future. Mom isn't sad anymore. "That's good," he said, sounding relieved. "If Mom isn't sad, then my sister and I are happy." After settling the two children down for their nap at home, I stood on the balcony and called Xiao Wei. 11:11, "What's wrong? You don't sound right." Ji Han-chuan saw the children, I said, "at the kindergarten." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line, and then, did he figure it out? I closed my eyes. Song Wanqing was there too. It was quite a scene. "What are you going to do? Stick to the original plan?" I opened my eyes and looked at the glass curtain wall of the G Group building in the distance. "Is everything we need ready?" "It's ready. The original surveillance footage from the hospital has been obtained, serving as complete evidence of the counterfeit quality inspection of maternal and infant products, and the chain of evidence has been organized. As for Song Wanqing, I found a girl who once worked as an assistant in her studio. She is willing to testify that 5 years ago, it was Song Wanqing who actively pursued Ji Han-chuan and bribed the Ji family's driver to take photos of you having dinner with your university classmates, fabricating evidence of infidelity." "Very well," I said. "Wait for my notification." After hanging up the phone, it rang again, this time from an unfamiliar number. I answered, and it was Ji Han-chuan's voice, hoarse and strained. "Let's meet," he said. "Mr. Ji, I'm very busy." "Just 10 minutes, he insisted. "I'm downstairs at your place." I walked to the window and looked down. The familiar black Bentley was parked at the entrance of the apartment building. Ji Han-chuan leaned against the car door, phone in hand, looking up in my direction. The night was deepening, and the streetlights cast a long, lonely shadow around him. But my heart remained unmoved. After hanging up, I changed clothes, went downstairs, walked through the lobby, and pushed open the glass door. The night wind blew with a chill, and I tightened my coat. Ji Han-chuan straightened up when he saw me. "Are the children asleep?" he asked. They've grown up well," he said softly. "They look like you, and also like me." I didn't respond. He looked at me, something turbulent in his eyes. "It must have been hard for you to raise them alone these 5 years." "Fortunately," I said, "it was easier than when I was in the G family." The corner of his mouth twitched. "Wency," he took a step forward. "I owe you an explanation for what happened back then." "No need." I took a step back, creating distance between us. "If you came here today to talk about these old matters, then we can end this conversation. Between you and me, there's nothing to discuss except the divorce proceedings." "The child," his voice rose. "That's my child. I have rights." "What rights do you have?" I cut him off. 5 years ago, when you chose to humiliate me in front of the whole world, did you ever think you had the right to be a father? When your mother pressured me time and again to abort the child, did you ever stand up and say a single word? Ji Han-chuan, what gives you the right to talk to me about rights now, in the darkness? His face was as pale as paper. I didn't know. His voice trembled. I didn't know you were pregnant. My mother never told me. That day at the wedding, I was forced to. My mother threatened to kill herself, saying that if I didn't marry Song Wanqing, she would jump from the top floor of the Jisha building. So I laughed, but tears welled up without warning. So I was just meant to be the sacrifice, meant to watch you marry someone else while I was carrying your child. Ji Hanchuan. Don't shift the blame to your mother. You're an adult. You had a choice. You just chose the path that was more beneficial to you. He shook his head, trying to speak, but no sound came out. I wiped away my tears and took a deep breath. I've already formally filed for divorce. You won't win custody of the child. Given your absence over the past 5 years, plus the record of your mother trying to force me to have an abortion, the court won't rule in your favor. If you're smart, you'll sign. And we can part on good terms. Part on good terms. He seemed stung by the phrase. How could we possibly part on good terms? Then we won't part on good terms, I said coldly. But the outcome won't change. Ji Hanchuan, I'm not the Wenxi from 5 years ago who let you have your way. If you insist on fighting, I'll see it through to the end. With that, I turned to leave. Wait, he called out to me. At least let me see them. I am their father. I stopped but didn't turn around. We'll talk after the divorce is finalized, if they're willing. As I walked into the lobby, I heard the dull thud of fists pounding against the car behind me, one after another, but I didn't look back. The elevator ascended, and in the mirrored surface, my cold reflection stared back. This is only the beginning, Ji Hanchuan. The pain you gave me, I'll return it to you, bit by bit. At 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning, I received a call from Principal Chen of the kindergarten, MS. I'm sorry to disturb you. This morning, a man claiming to be the children's father came to the kindergarten and demanded to collect DNA samples from Wen Ming and Wen Yu, saying he wanted to conduct a paternity test. Of course, we refused. But the other party was very insistent and even brought a lawyer. I tightened my grip on my phone. Is it Ji Hanchuan? Yes, he said that if you don't agree, he will apply to the court for a compulsory test. What do you think about this? I'll come right away. When I arrived at the kindergarten, Ji Hanchuan was indeed still there. He was sitting on the sofa in the principal's office, with a middle-aged man in a suit carrying a briefcase standing beside him, likely his lawyer. Principal Chen saw me and breathed a sigh of relief. You're here. Ji Hanchuan looked up, his eyes were bloodshot, and there was a stubble of dark beard on his chin, as if he hadn't slept all night. He stood up. We need to talk about the children. We have nothing to talk about. I placed my bag on the table. Principal Chen, I'm sorry for the trouble today. I promise it won't happen again. Ji Hanchuan raised his voice. I need a clear answer about whether the children are mine. The answer. I turned to look at him. Ji Hanchuan, haven't you already made up your mind? If the children weren't yours, would you be in such a hurry to get a test? You just want to use a piece of paper to prove you have the right to be involved in their lives. That is my right, he almost shouted. The office fell into a terrifying silence. Principal Chen and the lawyer held their breath. I looked at Ji Hanchuan and suddenly found it all ridiculous. 5 years ago, he was indifferent to me, not even knowing I was 5 months pregnant. 5 years later, he was here making a scene over his paternal rights. Fine, I nodded. You want a test? You can have it. He was taken aback, clearly not expecting me to agree. But I have conditions, I continued. First, I must be present during the sampling process. Second, after the report comes out, I paused, if the child is yours. You and your mother are never to approach them again. Impossible, Ji Hanchuan immediately retorted. If they are my children, there's no way I won't acknowledge them. Then we'll see each other in court. I picked up my bag. Principal Chen, I'll trouble you to keep a close watch today. Don't let any outsiders get near my children. Ji Hanchuan stopped me, his voice lowering. What exactly do you want? They are my flesh and blood. How can I pretend they don't exist? Then just pretend they don't exist. I met his gaze. Just like you pretended I didn't exist 5 years ago. He froze. I walked past him and left the office. In the hallway, sunlight streamed through the glass windows, bright and glaring. I leaned against the wall and took a few deep breaths, forcing back the sting in my eyes. Don't cry, you can't cry. My phone vibrated. It was Qiao Wei. Hey, guess who came to see me? Her voice carried a cold sneer. Old Mrs. G just came to my company, saying she wants to see you. Tell her I'm busy. I did, but she won't leave. She says she'll wait until you show up. Qiao Wei lowered her voice. She also brought a check. I took a glance. 5 million. 5 million. 5 years ago, when he forced me to sign the divorce agreement. The price was 3 million. Now it's gone up. I'll go, I said. Give me 20 minutes. On the way to Qiao Wei's company, I received a call from Lin Xiaoqian. I heard you ran into some trouble today, he said gently. Do you need help? News travels fast. Thank you, senior. Not for now. I kept my eyes on the road ahead. It's just a family matter. I can handle it myself. Alright. But there's something I want to remind you. Lin Xiaoqian paused. The G family is not to be trifled with, and old Mrs. G is even more formidable. She has stood firm in the business world for 30 years, and her methods are harsher than you can imagine. Be careful. Being alone with the children, I know, I said softly. Thank you. Hanging up the phone, I stepped on the accelerator. Qiao Wei's public relations company was located in an office building in the CBD. I took the elevator to the 20th floor. The receptionist girl stood up immediately upon seeing me. President Wen. President Qiao is in the meeting room. Old Mrs. G is also there. I nodded and walked straight to the meeting room. Pushing the door open, I saw Qiao Wei sitting in the main seat. Looking displeased, across from her, old Mrs. G sat upright, wearing a deep purple cheongsam embroidered with gold thread, her hair neatly combed. She held a cup of tea in her hand, her posture as elegant as if she were posing for a magazine photo shoot. 5 years had passed, and she had aged a bit, but that air of superiority remained unchanged. When she said, putting down her teacup and looking up at me, sit, her tone sounded like she was ordering a servant. I took a seat in the chair next to Qiao Wei. Old Mrs. G, what brings you to see me? I heard you've returned and brought 2 children with you. Old Mrs. G took a check from her handbag and pushed it to the center of the table. 5 million. Take the money, leave with the children, and never come back. I looked at the check, where 5 zeros were neatly written in the amount column, and smiled. Old Mrs. G, it's been 5 years, and you still love solving problems with money. It's the most effective way, she said expressionlessly. When 5 years ago, you were sensible and signed the divorce agreement. It's the same now. Although Han Chuan and Dublian Qing's marriage has been delayed, it will happen sooner or later. You and the children staying here will only complicate things. I picked up the check and held it up to the light. Are you afraid that the children and I will affect your carefully planned marriage alliance? Or are you worried that the G family scandals can no longer be hidden? Old Mrs. G's expression darkened. Watch your words. My words are very measured, I said, placing the check back on the table. It's you, Mrs. G. 5 years ago, you lied to me, saying Jihanchuan was on a business trip when he was actually preparing for his wedding to Song Wanqing. You forced me to sign the divorce papers and even tried to have a doctor prescribe me an abortion pill. Do I need to remind you of each and every one of these things? Qiao Wei gasped. 11:11. She really, shut up. Old Mrs. G shot Qiao Wei a cold glance before turning her gaze back to me. Wency, bringing up the past is meaningless. Now, I'm giving you 2 choices. First, take the 5 million and disappear with the child. Second, she paused, I'll make sure you can't stay in this country. A threat, a blatant threat. I looked at her and suddenly remembered 5 years ago, also in this city, on a similarly sunny afternoon, she sat in the living room of the G family's old mansion and said to me in the same icy tone, Wency, Hanchuan needs to marry a woman who can support the G family, not someone from a modest background like you. Be sensible and leave on your own, and you can still keep some dignity. Back then, I cried, I begged, but in the end, I signed. But not now, old Mrs. G. I stood up, picked up the check, and slowly, piece by piece, tore it apart. 5 million can't sever the bond between me and my child, nor can it pay off the debt your son owes me. The shreds of paper fluttered down like snowflakes onto the polished table surface. Old Mrs. G's expression finally changed. Wency, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. I don't drink any kind of toast. I leaned forward, placing both hands on the table, looking directly into her eyes. Old Mrs. G, listen carefully. I will definitely divorce Ji Hanchuan. But he can forget about touching the child. As for everything you did to me 5 years ago, I remember it all, we'll settle it slowly. After saying that, I straightened up and said to Xiao Wei, Wei, see the guest out. Xiao Wei stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. Old Mrs. G, please. Old Mrs. G slowly rose to her feet. She looked at me, her eyes like poisoned daggers. You'll regret this, Wency. The thing I regret most is stepping into the G family's door 5 years ago. I smiled. But now, I don't regret it anymore, because I know I will watch you and your son pay the price for the choices you made back then. She said nothing more, straightened her back, and walked out of the reception room. The door closed, and Xiao Wei rushed back, grabbing my arm. Are you crazy? Tearing up his check right in front of him. Do you even know who he is? I know, I interrupted her. Walking to the window and watching the black Rolls-Royce drive away downstairs. I know he has many tricks up his sleeve, I know he's ruthless, but Wei, I'm not the Wenxi from 5 years ago who could be trampled on anymore. But no, I turned to look at her. I've already declared war on the G family, there's no turning back. Xiao Wei fell silent for a long time before finally sighing. What do you need me to do? Help me find the best divorce lawyer, I said. Also, send me the information on Song Wanqing's former assistant. It's time to bring some people into the light. That afternoon, I received a court summons. Ji Hanchuan had filed a lawsuit, requesting a compulsory DNA test under the pretext of confirming paternity. Xiao Wei was so angry she smashed a cup. How dare he sue 1111? We can't agree to this. Once the test results come out, he'll have the right to fight for custody. Agree to it, I said calmly, looking at the summons. Not only agree, but make a big show of agreeing. What do you mean? I walked to the desk, turned on the computer, and pulled up a file. This is evidence I've collected over the years of old Mrs. G interfering in G Group's operations and embezzling company funds. It may not be enough to send her to prison, but it's enough to make G Group's stock price plummet for a while. Xiao Wei leaned in. You want to use this to force them to drop the lawsuit? I smiled. I want to use this to tell them that I'm not here to beg, I'm here to declare war. 3 days later, Ji Hanchuan and I met at the court-appointed testing center. He looked even more haggard, his eyes bloodshot as if he hadn't slept well for days. I brought the 2 children with me. When you clutched the hem of my clothes, a little scared. While Wen Ce stood quietly, watching Ji Hanchuan, the sampling process was quick. The doctor collected oral mucosal cells from both children and took a blood sample from Ji Hanchuan. 5 working days later, the results came out, the doctor said. As we walked out of the identification center, Ji Hanchuan called out to me, Wency, his voice was hoarse, if the child is mine, can we start over? I stopped in my tracks but did not turn around. Ji Hanchuan, there is no starting over in this world. Only too late. I know I was wrong. He quickly walked up to me, blocking my path. These 5 years, I haven't spent a single day without regret. I've searched for you for 5 years, waited for you for 5 years, waited for me. I smiled, waited for me to come back, so your mother could send me away with another 5 million. I won't let my mother interfere in our affairs again. He grabbed my wrist. Wency, give me a chance, let me make it up to you and the child. I looked into his eyes. Ji Hanchuan, what can you possibly make up for? The 5 years of fatherly love the children missed? Or the fear I felt when I almost died in the delivery room? He froze. Your delivery didn't go smoothly. Premature at 7 months. Massive bleeding. 3 days in the ICU. I spoke word by word. Where were you then? Attending a charity gala with Song Wanqing? Or selecting a new marriage alliance with your mother? His face turned pale, and his hand released mine. I didn't know. Of course you didn't know. I picked up Wanla and took Wanqing's hand, because in your heart, I was never important. Ji Hanchuan, stop pretending to be sentimental. You just suddenly realized that there are 2 people in this world who share your blood, and you can't control them. After saying that, I took the children and walked toward the parking lot. This time, he didn't chase after us. On the way home, when you asked softly, Mom, is Dad very sad? I looked at my daughter's worried little face in the rearview mirror and whispered, yeah. Some people only feel sad after they've lost something, but that's not real sadness, it's just unwillingness. When Chen suddenly spoke up, Mom, if the test report says he's our dad, will he try to take us away? My grip on the steering wheel tightened. No, I said, Mom won't let anyone take you away. 5 days later, the paternity test report came out, accompanied by lawyers, Ji Han-chwon, and I received the sealed report envelope at the identification center. His lawyer couldn't wait to tear it open, pull out the report, flip to the last page, and then his expression changed. Ji Han-chwon took the report, glanced at it, and froze completely. The report slipped from his hand and fluttered to the ground. I bent down to pick it up. The probability of paternity is 99%, confirming the biological father. I looked at the paternity report, then turned my gaze to Ji Han-chwon. Her eyes were red, her lips trembling, wanting to say something but unable to make a sound. Now you know, I said, handing the report back to his lawyer. Ji Han-chwon, they are your children, but that's all you can know. After speaking, I turned to leave, when he called out hoarsely, they are my children, mine, so what? I looked back. Legally, you only have visitation rights, and that's only if I agree. In reality, do you think the children would want to acknowledge a man who abandoned their mother as their father? He seemed drained of all strength, staggering a step before steadying himself against the wall. I was wrong, he murmured, I was really wrong, and I have to pay the price. I gave him one last look. Ji Han-chwon, you're only just beginning to pay. I was the first to walk out of the testing center. The sunlight was glaring. I took out my phone and sent a message to Xiao Wei. We can begin. The war had officially begun. Laser Brand's domestic strategy launch event was scheduled for Friday at 2 p.m. in the banquet hall of the Guomao Hotel. Invitations had been sent out a week prior. Media, investors, industry partners, and even a few competitors. Everyone who should be there would be there. In the backstage dressing room, the makeup artist was touching up my makeup while Xiao Wei held a tablet. Going through the final rundown, you'll start with a 5-minute speech, followed by the brand promotional video. Then comes the product showcase and partnership signing segment. Lin's Harmony Hospital will officially sign the contract today. It's already finalized. Finally, there's the media QA. He paused, lowering his voice. Ji Han-chwon is here too. He's sitting in the third row, on the right. I adjusted my earrings in the mirror. He came alone with his assistant and lawyer. Xiao Wei frowned. Do you think he'll cause trouble today? It would be better if he did. I smiled. I'm more worried he won't. The woman in the mirror wore a white tailored suit, her hair neatly tied up, makeup flawless, and eyes sharp. The Wenxi from 5 years ago, the one in an old dress, shrinking into the corner of the Ji family home, too afraid to speak, was gone for good. At exactly 2 o'clock, the press conference officially began. I walked onto the stage. The lights shone down, the seats below were filled with people, camera flashes flickered, and the sound of shutters rose and fell. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and friends from the media. I am Wenxi, the founder of the Shiguang maternal and infant care brand. The opening remarks were brief. I introduced Shiguang's philosophy, technological advantages, and domestic development plans. The response from the audience was enthusiastic. Especially when I announced that we had already reached a strategic partnership with Lin's Harmony Hospital, and applause thundered through the hall. The promotional video began to play. On the large screen, scenes of Shiguang's stores in Singapore, the professional care team, and advanced equipment flashed by one. The visuals were warm, the background music soft, and everything went smoothly until the promotional video ended and the lights came back on. I returned to the center of the stage, picked up the microphone, and thanked everyone for watching Shiguang's promotional video. But today, aside from the brand launch, I have another matter I'd like to take this opportunity to explain to everyone. The audience quieted down. I looked toward the third row, slightly to the right, where Ji Han-chwon was sitting, his back straight, his gaze fixed intently on me. 5 years ago, I left this city. I began to speak slowly, my voice echoing through the banquet hall via the sound system. At the time, I was 5 months pregnant and went alone to the municipal maternity hospital for a prenatal checkup. And on that very day, the screen in the hospital's waiting hall was broadcasting a grand wedding live. My husband, Mr. Ji Han-chwon, CEO of the G Group, and the popular actress Song Wanqing's wedding. A wave of suppressed gasps rippled through the audience, and the cameras instantly swiveled toward Ji Han-chwon. His face turned pale in an instant, and his hands clenched into fists. At that time, Mr. Ji Hanchuan and I were still legally married. I continued, my tone as calm as if I were recounting someone else's story. His mother, Madam Ji, repeatedly pressured me to sign divorce papers during my pregnancy and even attempted to force me into having an abortion. And during these 5 years of my disappearance, I raised a pair of premature twins and started Shiguang from scratch in Singapore. The image on the large screen switched. It was a blurry yet clear surveillance video, dated 5 years ago in the afternoon, at the VIP waiting area on the 3rd floor of the municipal maternity hospital. In the footage, a younger version of me was clutching my stomach, standing pale-faced, looking up at the large screen directly ahead. On the screen was the unmistakable image of Ji Hanchuan and Song Wanqing kissing in a church. The video was short, only 30 seconds, but it was enough. The banquet hall erupted into chaos. Reporters frantically pressed their camera shutters, and some even stood up to record with their phones. Ji Hanchuan abruptly stood up. His lawyer tried to pull him back into his seat, but he shook him off. When his voice was hoarse, "Do you really have to go this far?" I looked at him, picked up the remote control, and pressed a button. The image on the large screen switched again. These are scanned documents. One by one, quality inspection reports for maternal and infant products under the G Group, internal emails, and purchase orders, with red circles highlighting data on excessive bacterial counts, falsified inspection dates, and substandard raw material batch numbers, over the past 5 years. Under the leadership of the matriarch of the G family, the G Group has massively expanded its maternal and infant product division. I raised my voice, each word landing like a heavy hammer. But in pursuit of profit, they have repeatedly falsified product safety data. These are the actual quality inspection results for 3 batches of infant care products under the G Group, with total bacterial counts exceeding the standard by 30 times, yet they were approved for sale by falsifying the reports. This is slander. Ji Hanchuan's lawyer stood up and shouted, "We have the right to sue. Please defend." I looked at him and said, "All the evidence has been submitted simultaneously to the State Administration for Market Regulation and the Public Security Authorities." Then, I pressed the remote control again, and a transfer record appeared on the screen. This is the bank record of a 5 million yuan check the matriarch of the G family gave me 5 days ago. She demanded that I disappear forever with the child. I refused and tore up the check, but bank records, they can't be torn. The entire room erupted in an uproar. Ji Hanchuan froze in place, staring at the screen in disbelief, then at me. His mother had done these things behind his back, and he knew nothing about it. I am not standing here today to play the victim or seek sympathy. I put down the remote control and scanned the room. I just want to tell everyone that when women face injustice in marriage or the workplace, they should not remain silent. I want them to know how strong a mother can be to protect her child. And, I looked at Ji Hanchuan, those who do wrong will eventually pay the price. With that, I bowed deeply. The audience fell silent for a few seconds, then erupted into thunderous applause. Qiao Wei rushed onto the stage and escorted me backstage. Reporters swarmed in, their questions hitting like cannonballs. "Ms. When? How is the progress of your divorce from Mr. Ji Hanchuan? Is it true that the product was counterfeit? Will you sue Mrs. G next?" I did not answer. Under the escort of security, we quickly left the banquet hall. The commotion from the hall could still be heard in the backstage corridor. Qiao Wei excitedly grabbed my hand. "Did you see that?" Ji Hanchuan's face. "Ha ha ha, it was so satisfying." I leaned against the wall, letting out a long sigh, my hands trembling. Wei, where are the children?" "Don't worry, they're safe with my assistant." Qiao Wei checked the time. "You can't go back to the apartment now. The reporters will definitely be blocking the door. Come to my place first to lay low." As soon as we stepped out the back door, we saw that black Bentley parked right in the middle of the road. Ji Hanchuan stood by the car, his suit jacket gone, his shirt collar undone, his eyes bloodshot. When he saw me, he strode over. Qiao Wei tried to block him, but I gently pushed her aside. When Ji Hanchuan stopped in front of me, his voice hoarse, "If you hate me, come at me. Why destroy the G Group? That was my father's life's work. It wasn't me who destroyed the G Group," I said, looking at him. "It was your mother. And you, if you had spoken up 5 years ago, if you had told me the truth before that wedding, If you had acted like a man and taken responsibility as a husband and a father, I spoke each word clearly, none of this would have happened today. He shook his head, tears falling unexpectedly. This man, who had been proud all his life, was crying in front of me. I didn't know, I really didn't know what my mother did. I didn't know how hard your pregnancy was. I didn't know there were problems with the product. He rambled incoherently. When she, give me a chance to make it up to you. Please, it's too late. I said softly, Ji Hanchuan, it was already too late the moment you said I do at the wedding. I walked past him and headed towards Qiao Wei's car. When he called out from behind. The children, at least let me see the children. My hand paused as I reached for the car door. Let's wait until all of this is over, I said without turning back. If they're willing. The car drove a long way, and I could still see him standing in place through the rearview mirror, like a frozen statue. Qiao Wei whispered, She, will you soften your heart? No, I closed my eyes. Wei, do you know how I've lived these past 5 years? Do I know? You don't know. I opened my eyes and looked at the fleeting street scenes outside the window. When I had premature labor and hemorrhaged, the doctor asked whether to save the mother or the child. Before losing consciousness, I said, save the child. When I woke up in the ICU, there was no one by my side, only a nurse. When the child was 3 months old, Che had a high fever of 40 degrees Celsius in the middle of the night. I held him and tried to hail a taxi in the heavy rain. The hospital said it might be meningitis. I knelt outside the emergency room all night. My voice was very calm, but Qiao Wei's tears had already started to fall. Later, when I started my business, I was suppressed by local competitors, had clients stolen, and was slandered as having risen through my body. I've come this far step by step, not so that anyone could make up for it. I turned to look at her. I did it to tell everyone that don't need anyone's charity to live well. Qiao Wei nodded firmly. Yes, you've done it. The phone rang. It was Lin Xiaoqian. I answered. When I watched the press conference, he said, his voice serious. You're too bold. The Ji family won't let this go. I know. Do you need my help? You have some resources in law and media, but not for now, I said. But I need you to do me a favor. Tell me, tomorrow, Daisha's stock price will definitely plummet. I looked out the window. I want you to help me buy up the shares that retail investors sell off. The more, the better. There was silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds. When what are you trying to do? Take back what should have been mine, I said softly. It's both the group and my 5 years of youth and tears. Now it's time to collect some interest. After hanging up the phone, the car drove into the neighborhood where Qiao Wei lived. The 2 children were already there, sitting on the living room carpet playing with building blocks. When they saw me, when you immediately ran over and hugged my leg, saying, Mom, I saw you on TV. You looked so beautiful. When Che also walked over, looking up at me and asking, Mom, are you very tired? I crouched down and hugged them. Not tired. I kissed their foreheads. Mom did something very important today, something that made the people who bullied me know that I'm not someone to be messed with. When Che thought for a moment and said seriously, then from now on, my sister and I will protect you. My eyes welled up with tears. Okay. After putting the 2 children to bed that night, I opened my computer. The internet was already in an uproar. Hashtag, Ji Hanchuan's bigamy. Hashtag, Jisha product fraud. Hashtag, 5 million check. 6 of the top 10 trending topics were related to today's events. The official Weibo account of Jisha was flooded with criticism. And Song Wanqing's Weibo was also under attack. The latest promotional post for Jisha's maternal and infant products had already received over 100,000 comments, all of them calling her a shameless homewrecker. I closed the web page and opened my email. Inside, there was an anonymous email with an attachment, an audio file. The subject line had only 2 words, evidence. I put on my headphones and clicked on the file. At first, there was chaotic background noise, as if in a private room at a high-end restaurant. Then a familiar female voice spoke. It was Song Wanqing. Auntie, don't worry, I've arranged everything. The driver has been taken care of. He'll take photos of when she having dinner with his college classmate, and the angle will make it look like they're kissing. Yes, when the time comes, you can show the photos to Hanchuan. He'll definitely believe it. Next was the voice of old Mrs. G, cold and arrogant. Make sure it's done cleanly. That woman when she isn't worthy of our G family. Hanchuan must marry you so the cooperation with the Lin family can continue. I know, auntie, once Hanchuan and I are married, I'll take good care of you. The audio cut off abruptly. I saved the file and replied to the sender with 2 words, received. Outside the window, the night was deep, and the city still glittered with lights, but I knew that starting tomorrow, some people's lives would be turned upside down, and this was only the beginning. At 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, I was awakened by a phone call. It was Qiao Wei, her voice trembling with excitement. Hey, check Weibo, Song Wanqing is trending at number 1. Groggily, I opened my phone to the trending list. First, Song Wanqing's recording exposed. Second, Madam G framed her daughter-in-law. Third, Jisha Group's stock price plummets. I clicked on the first one. It was a long post from a newly registered account. The text was simple. 5 years ago, I was Song Wanqing's personal assistant. Today, I've decided to tell the truth. Attached was an audio clip, exactly the one I had received last night. In less than an hour since the post went up, it had been reposted over 500,000 times, and the comments section was in an uproar. Oh my god. This is solid evidence. Song Wanqing and Madam G teamed up to frame the first wife. How vile. And she was pregnant at the time. Is Ji Hanchuan blind? How dare he marry a woman like this? Madam G is no saint either. She'll stop at nothing to get what she wants. Scrolling further, I saw several new trending topics. Song Wanqing dropped by brands. Jisha Group issues statement. Police investigate Jisha product fraud. I clicked on Jisha's statement, a carefully worded but feeble announcement. The gist was that they had reported the false online information to the police. The company's operations were normal, and they reserved the right to pursue legal action. But no one was buying it. The top comment read, "Report to the police." What police? To arrest yourselves. I turned off my phone and got up to wash up. The 2 children were already awake. Sitting at the dining table eating the breakfast Qiao Wei had prepared, Wentz pointed at the TV. Mom, they're talking about you on TV. I looked at the morning news, which was reporting on yesterday's press conference. The screen cut to the entrance of Jisha Group's headquarters, already swarmed with reporters and consumers demanding their rights. Jisha Group's maternal and infant products had been exposed for quality fraud. With numerous consumers gathering at the headquarters to demand refunds and compensation, actress Song Wanqing was embroiled in a wealthy family scandal, and multiple endorsement brands had announced they were dropping her. Jisha Group's stock price had plummeted 15% at the opening, wiping over 10 billion yuan from its market value. The scene was chaotic. Consumers held signs reading "Black-hearted enterprise, give us back our health." Reporters chased after technical executives with questions, and security guards formed a human wall, barely maintaining order. I watched the TV, feeling calm inside. Qiao Wei walked over with a cup of coffee and whispered, "Madam G has been hospitalized. She was so furious she had a sudden attack last night and was taken in around midnight. Ji Hanchuan is at the hospital with her now." Qiao Wei curled her lip. "Serves her right." I didn't say anything, walking to the window to look at the sky outside. It was a cloudy day, with thick layers of clouds as if rain was coming. The wind was picking up, heralding the storm. At 10 in the morning, I received a call from Lin Shaoqian. "Wency, even though the stock price has already dropped by 20%, I followed your instructions and bought up the 3% of shares that retail investors were selling." He paused. "But I don't understand what use it is for you to acquire these shares. With just 3%, you can't even get a seat on the board at Jisha. Not being able to get in now doesn't mean I won't be able to in the future." I said, "Keep buying, senior. Buy as much as you can. If you run short, let me know." "Where are you getting so much money?" "I haven't been idle these past 5 years," I said softly, "and with old Mrs. G, I still have a score to settle." There was silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds. Wency, know when to stop. The G family may be in chaos now. But a centipede doesn't die even when it's cut in half. If you push them too hard, they'll fight back. "I know," I said, "but I've been waiting for this day for 5 years. After hanging up, I changed my clothes and said to Qiao Wei, "Wei, please take care of the child. I'm going out." "Where are you going?" "The hospital. The VIP ward floor at the downtown private hospital." When I stepped out of the elevator, Several of the G family's bodyguards were standing in the hallway. They froze when they saw me and tried to block my way, but they were stopped by the two bodyguards behind me. Professional security Qiao Wei had arranged for me. "Step aside," I said. They hesitated for a moment but eventually moved out of the way. I walked to the innermost room and pushed the door open. Inside the ward, old Mrs. G lay on the hospital bed with an 4 drip in her hand. Her face was pale, but her eyes were still sharp. Rui Li Jihanchuan sat in a chair by the bed. His back to the door. Hearing the noise, he turned and saw me. He stood up abruptly. "Wensi, what are you doing here?" "To see old Mrs. G," I said, walking in and placing the fruit basket I'd brought on the bedside table. "After all, she offered me 5 million, even though I didn't take it." Old Mrs. G stared at me, her chest heaving violently. You still dare to come? Why wouldn't I dare?" I pulled over a chair and sat down. "Old Mrs. G, have you listened to that recording online?" Her face turned even uglier. "That's fabricated, it's slander. I'm going to sue you." "Sue me?" I laughed. "You should first think about how to explain the product fraud to the police. Oh, and about the embezzlement, you thought you covered it up perfectly. But I have backups of all those accounts." Old Mrs. G's pupils suddenly contracted. How could you? How do you have those accounts?" I finished for her. "Because your most trusted financial director, Manager Wang, his son is studying in Singapore and ran into some trouble. I helped him out. In return, he gave me some interesting things." Ji Hanchuan looked at me in disbelief, then turned to his mother. "Mom, is the embezzlement true?" Old Mrs. G's lips trembled, unable to speak. "It seems Mr. G still doesn't know." I stood up. "Then let me tell you, over the past 5 years, your mother has embezzled at least 80 million from the G Group under various pretexts. 30 million was used to secure Song Wanqing's acting resources, 20 million went to her nephew to start a company, and the rest is probably in this hospital's account. After all, a VIP ward costs quite a bit each year." "Mom," Ji Hanchuan's voice trembled. "Is this true?" Old Mrs. G closed her eyes. 2 lines of tears sliding from the corners, a silent admission. Ji Hanchuan staggered, leaning against the wall as if all his strength had been drained in an instant. I looked at him, feeling no ripple of emotion inside. "Ji Hanchuan, do you understand now?" I said softly. "Your so-called family, your so-called responsibility, it's all just an elaborately woven lie. Your mother would stop at nothing to control the company, to make you marry the person she chose." I paused. "And you're just an obedient puppet." "No," he shook his head, "it's not like that, isn't it? You know the truth in your heart." I walked to the door of the ward and stopped, not looking back. "I've already applied to the court for enforcement of the divorce agreement. The hearing is next Monday. As for the children, once all this is over, if they're willing, I can arrange for you to see them. But on one condition, you and your mother must never appear in my life again." Leaving the hospital room and closing the door, the hallway was quiet. I could hear the muffled sobs of Mrs. G and the questioning of Ji Hanchuan and Sai Ya from inside the room, but none of that concerned me anymore. As the elevator descended, I received a call from Qiao Wei. 11:11. "Check the news. Song Wanqing is holding a press conference." I opened my phone to the live stream. On the screen, Song Wanqing appeared without makeup, her eyes red and swollen, crying to the camera. "I was forced into this. Mrs. G threatened to blacklist me if I didn't cooperate. I love Hanchuan. I truly love him. All those things were orchestrated by Mrs. G. I was just a pawn." The reporters in the audience erupted in jeers. "Miss Song, you claim you were forced, but 5 years ago, you knew Ji Hanchuan was married and still got involved with him. Were you forced then too? In the recording with Mrs. G, you didn't sound forced at all. Now you're shifting the blame to Mrs. G. Doesn't your conscience hurt?" Song Wanqing shook her head, crying. Unable to speak, the live stream was quickly cut off. I turned off my phone. When dogs fight, they both end up covered in fur. As I stepped out of the hospital, the sky began to drizzle. Standing under the eaves, I watched the rain cast a hazy, grey filter over the world. A car pulled up in front of me, and the window rolled down. It was Lin Xiaoqian. "Get in," he said. "I'll take you." I didn't refuse. The car's heater was on full blast, and Lin Xiaoqian handed me a cup of hot coffee. "Warm your hands." "Thank you." The car merged into the traffic. the windshield wipers swinging rhythmically as the city outside blurred into flowing colors in the rain. "What are you planning to do next?" Lin Xiaoqian asked. "Wait for the court's verdict," I replied, taking a sip of coffee, "then focus on raising my child and living well." "What about the shares you acquired?" he asked. "Leave them for now," I said, "even though this has been a devastating blow, and it'll take 3 to 5 years to recover. The Ji family's foundation is still there. If Ji Hanchuan can pull through this, he might make a comeback. Do you want him to make a comeback?" I looked out the window and didn't answer. Did I want that? I didn't know. I'd hated for 5 years, taken my revenge, and felt a fleeting satisfaction. But the emptiness inside remained unfilled. Perhaps some wounds can't be healed by time, you just learn to live with them. The car stopped downstairs at my apartment, when Xiaoqian called out to me, if you were willing to start a new relationship, would you consider someone close by?" I turned to look at him. His ears were a bit red, but his gaze was serious. "Senior," I said softly, "right now, I just want to raise my 2 children well. I'm not considering anything else for the time being." He nodded and smiled. "All right, then I'll be first in line." I got out of the car and walked into the rain. He didn't drive away immediately but waited until I entered the building before slowly pulling away. In the elevator, I looked at my rain-soaked reflection in the mirror. There was exhaustion in my eyes. But even more so, a sense of relief. 5 years, this long war was finally coming to an end. When I got home, the 2 children rushed over and hugged me. "Mom, you're all wet. Go change your clothes, or you'll catch a cold." I smiled and hugged them back, giving each a kiss. "All right, Mom will go change, and then I'll play with you, okay?" "Okay." In the bedroom, I changed into dry, comfortable home clothes and walked to the window. The rain was still falling, and the whole world was shrouded in a hazy mist. My phone vibrated, a new text message from an unfamiliar number. "Court on Monday. I'll sign. The children, let me know when they want to see me. I'm sorry, and thank you for raising them so well." It was Ji Hanchuan. I stared at that message for a long, long time. But in the end, I didn't reply. Some apologies come too late, and some forgiveness I haven't yet learned. But perhaps time will provide the answers. Outside the window, the rain gradually lightened, and a faint glimmer of light appeared on the horizon. On Monday at the courthouse, the divorce case between Ji Hanchuan and me was heard in the family court. The public gallery was full. Qiao Wei, Lin Xiaoqian, and a few friendly media outlets. Old Mrs. Ji didn't come. She was reportedly still recuperating in the hospital. Ji Hanchuan sat in the defendant's seat, dressed in a black suit, his face pale but his back straight. His lawyer sat beside him. A stack of documents piled in front of them. The judge announced the start of the hearing. My lawyer spoke first. "Your Honor, my client, Ms. When she and the defendant, Mr. Ji Hanchuan, were married 8 years ago, 5 years ago. Due to the defendant holding a wedding ceremony with another person and their prolonged separation, the marital relationship has completely broken down. Ms. When she signed a divorce agreement 5 years ago, but the defendant has delayed signing it. We now request the court to grant the divorce, confirm that the 2 children will be raised by Ms. When she, and order the defendant to pay corresponding child support and relinquish visitation rights." Ji Hanchuan's lawyer immediately objected. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges fault in the marriage but does not agree to relinquish visitation rights. The children belong to both parties, and my client has the right." "Your Honor," I raised my hand. "May I speak?" The judge nodded. I stood up and looked at Ji Hanchuan. "Ji Hanchuan, I have a question for you. 5 years ago, on the day I went for my prenatal checkup when I was 5 months pregnant, where were you?" The entire courtroom fell silent. Ji Hanchuan's lips moved, his voice hoarse. "Preparing a wedding." "Whose wedding?" "Song Wanqing. At that time we were still legally married, weren't we?" "Yes." "Then what right does a husband who publicly holds a wedding with someone else while his wife is pregnant have to talk about paternal rights?" Ji Hanchuan's face turned deathly pale, unable to speak. His lawyer tried to interject but was stopped by the judge. "The defendant, please answer the question." Ji Hanchuan lowered his head for a long time before rasping out, "I have no right, Your Honor." I turned to the judge. "For the past 5 years, I have raised 2 children alone. Mr. Ji Hanchuan has never fulfilled any parental obligations, even during my most difficult times. His mother tried to force me to leave and give up the children with money. I don't believe someone like him is fit to be in the children's lives. The judge silently flipped through the case file. At that moment, Ji Hanchuan suddenly stood up. Your Honor, I request to withdraw all my defenses. His lawyer looked at him in shock. Mr. Ji, what are you saying? I agree to the divorce. Ji Hanchuan looked at me, his eyes rimmed red. I agree that when she will have custody of the children, I relinquish all my rights. A wave of suppressed gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge rapped the gavel. Defendant, are you certain? Are you sure? Ji Hanchuan's voice was very soft but clear. I owe her too much. This is the only compensation I can offer. The final verdict came swiftly. The divorce was granted. Custody of both children was awarded to me. Ji Hanchuan was to pay monthly child support until the children reached adulthood. As for visitation rights, since Ji Hanchuan voluntarily relinquished them, the court respected the wishes of both parties. After signing the papers and walking out of the courthouse, the sunlight was just right. Qiao Wei rushed over and hugged me. We won, I smiled and patted her back. We won. Lin Xiaoqian also walked over, smiling gently. Congratulations. Thank you, senior. As we were speaking, Ji Hanchuan walked out. He stood on the steps, looking at me, as if wanting to say something but hesitating. Qiao Wei immediately stepped in front of me. What else do you want? Ji Hanchuan shook his head, took an envelope from the inner pocket of his suit, and handed it over. This is for you. I didn't take it. What is it? Divorce papers, he said hoarsely. I've signed it, and there's also a 5% share transfer agreement for Jisha Group. It's part of my personal holdings, for you and the children. I was stunned. Don't refuse, he said, stuffing the envelope into my hand. This is what you and the children deserve. I'm sorry. And thank you for raising the children so well. With that, he turned to leave. Ji Hanchuan, I called out to him. He stopped but didn't turn around. The children, I paused. If you really want to see them, you can, but I must be present, and it depends on whether they're willing. His shoulders trembled slightly, and after a long moment, he said, okay. Then he strode down the steps, got into the black Bentley, and drove away. Qiao Wei looked at the envelope in my hand and chuckled. Are you really going to accept it? I put the envelope into my bag. This is what he owes the children. That evening, I made a lavish dinner at home to celebrate the beginning of a new life. Wentz and Wenyu were overjoyed, chattering non-stop about the fun things that happened at kindergarten. After dinner, I read picture books with them. Wenyu suddenly asked, Mom, will Dad come again in the future? I patted her head. If you want to see him, Mom can arrange it. But remember, no matter what, Mom and Dad will always love you. Wentz leaned against me and whispered, Mom, I kind of want to see him. My heart softened. Why? Because he looked really sad, Wentz said, lifting his head, and he is my dad. I hugged him tightly. Okay, then Mom will arrange it. A week later, I took the children to the playground to meet Ji Hanchuan. He arrived early, dressed in casual clothes, holding 2 teddy bears in his hands. As nervous as a high school student on his first date, when he saw us, he immediately stood up. For Wen-Che and Wen-Yu, he crouched down to their eye level. I'm your dad. Wen-Yu looked at him curiously, while Wen-Che nodded. I knew Ji Hanchuan's eyes were red as he handed the teddy bears over. These are for you. Wen-Yu took hers and said sweetly, thank you, Dad. Wen-Che also took his, but remained silent. The meeting that day was brief, lasting only an hour. Ji Hanchuan played on the slides and swings with the children and even bought them ice cream. He was reserved and careful, afraid of saying the wrong thing. As we were leaving, Wen-Yu took the initiative to hug him and asked, Dad, can we play together again next time? Ji Hanchuan finally shed tears. Yes, of course, we can. Wen-Che also reached out and shook his hand. On the way home, Wen-Yu asked, Mom, is Dad a good person? I thought for a moment and said, people aren't simply good or bad. He made mistakes and hurt Mom, but he's also trying to make amends. You can get to know him slowly and decide for yourselves. Wen-Che nodded, I understand. Days passed like this. Shiguang's development in the domestic market was going smoothly, and the collaboration with the Lin Group was on track. After the turmoil, Ji Hanchuan resigned from his position as president of the G Group, and a professional manager took over. After being discharged from the hospital, Mrs. Ji went abroad for recuperation and reportedly no longer involved herself in company affairs. Song Wanqing withdrew from the entertainment industry and disappeared from the public eye. Everything seemed to have settled down. 3 months later, on an ordinary weekend afternoon, I received a call from Ji Hanchuan. His voice sounded a bit strange. I'm on the rooftop of the G Group building. Can you come over? There's something I want to give you in person. I frowned. What is it? You'll know when you get here, he said. I'm alone. No one else is here. I glanced at the children who were taking their afternoon nap, thought for a moment, and said, okay. I'll be there in half an hour. The rooftop of the G Group building. When I pushed open the door, Ji Hanchuan was standing by the railing, his back to me, gazing at the distant city skyline. The wind was strong, tousling his hair. You're here. He didn't turn around. What do you want to give me? I walked over and stopped about 3 steps away from him. He turned around, holding a file folder in his hand. This is an additional 8% of the G Group's shares. He handed it over. Plus the 5% I gave you before, that makes 13% in total. You are now the 3rd largest shareholder of the G Group. I didn't take it. What do you mean? This is the last thing I can give you. He looked at me, his eyes calm. I'm planning to leave here, to go abroad. He smiled, a smile that carried a sense of relief. Even though I'm no longer involved, my mother is also abroad. There's nothing left here worth holding on to, except for you and the children. I remained silent. Before I leave, I want to give you everything that should be given, he said, stuffing the file folder into my hand. These shares are enough to ensure that you and the children never have to worry about food or clothing for the rest of your lives. Even if the Shiguang project fails, you'll have a way out. I don't need it. You do, he interrupted. I know you're strong. You can live well on your own. But this is the only thing I can do for the children as their father. Please accept it. Consider it my final gesture. I looked at the file folder in my hand, feeling its weight. When are you leaving? Tomorrow. He looked into the distance. The flight is in the morning. Do the children know? No, he shook his head. Don't tell them. I'll video call them once I'm settled. The rooftop fell silent, with only the wind howling for a long time before Ji Hanchuan finally spoke. Wensi, can you answer one last question for me? If it weren't for that wedding, if it weren't for my mother, could we have made it to the end? I looked at him. This man I had once loved, hated, and ultimately chosen to let go. Life has no what ifs, if, I said softly. Ji Hanchuan, we should both look ahead now. He was stunned for a moment, then smiled. Yes, look ahead. He reached out his hand. Let's shake hands one last time. I wish you and the children eternal happiness. I took his hand. It was very cold. Take care of yourself too. Letting go, I turned to leave. Wensi, he called out to me from behind. I turned back to see him standing at the edge of the rooftop, the wind lifting the hem of his clothes. His figure so frail it seemed he might be blown away at any moment. I'm sorry, he said, and thank you for once loving me. My nose stung, but I held back the tears. Goodbye, Ji Hanchuan. Goodbye. I walked down from the rooftop and closed the door. As the elevator descended, I looked at myself in the mirror, and the tears finally fell, not for him, but for that dead love, for the naive and foolish person I once was, for all the pain and struggle of these 5 years. But after crying, that empty place in my heart, which had been hollow for so long, seemed to finally be filled, not with forgiveness, not with release, but with a simple acceptance. Let it be. Just let it be. When I got home, the children were already awake, playing with building blocks in the living room. When you ran over and hugged me, asking, Mom, why are your eyes red? I crouched down and hugged him and Wen Cheng, saying, Mom is just very happy. Why are you happy? Because I have you. I kissed their little faces. With you, Mom is the happiest person in the world. Wen said seriously. We are too. Outside the window, the sun was setting, painting the sky a warm orange red. A new life had begun, and I could finally truly move forward.